starting at Lower Brailes, known in medieval times as Nether Brailes. First the meet outside the George Hotel, originally built in 1304, of Warwickshire Hunt. Innkeeper in 1588 was Thomas Wilkes, a reference document at the District Probate Registry, Birmingham, document number 296B.
I'll touch you when to start again.
Landlord was Mr. Alan Goody. Seen at the rear, Brayles Church Tower from the garden. A brick extension, right and left of it, outside view of location of a circular staircase and stone mullioned windows. We will continue now with the Wilkes family by returning to the manor farm at Upper Brailes. Manor house over Brailes, dated 1539, but originally owned and lived in at Christmas for 3 days by the Earls of Warwick in the 13th century. A moated manor house, confirmed by Dr. Ivor Wilkes in the 20th century. Wilfred, son of Thomas, who found armour, musket and sword when cleaning the moat out by then the size of a brook. At the outbreak of 1939-45 war, Warwick Museum packed all artefacts during war years. Labels came off, and so the Brayles items were lost. The Wilkes family, from John Wilkes via 2 Thomases and Wilfred, owned the brickworks from 1805 to 1928, when Wilfred sold Manor Farm to Mr. Percy Manley. Part of the moat can still be seen by the barn at west end of Farmyard. The brickworks was begun by Thomas in 1840-1850. His son, Thomas Wilkes, took over at his father's death, then by Wilfred, the youngest son.
The brickyard, wagons, bogie chassis and wheels used a V-shaped tilt truck to transport the wet clay on rails from pit to mixing pug, brick moulding and drying shed. The corroded spare axle set and hand barrow wheel, artefacts still waiting restoration. Now a pond, with fish maybe. When digging in 1835, the clay pit yielded Roman and Saxon artefacts. Alongside remains of Manley's garden, Albert Lock Gardener. Plums and damson trees, asparagus beds and soft fruit bushes. The south view shows length of pit. Is it now a lake? Covered with water lilies. Flashback picture shows 2 German prisoners making bricks during the 1914-18 war. The map of Thomas Wilkes's search for coal. Drilling in the summer of 1854, samples from the bore depth of 284 yards, clearly known to precede seams of coal. Shares in this enterprise at £1 each, available from Henry Field, Post Office Brailes, or the Stourbridge and Kidderminster Bank, Shipston on Stour. The fountain built by Richard Badger, his wife Ellen of Allmeadow Farm. Attached by chain to the fountain was an iron cup for drinking, later replaced by the iron hand pump. Entering into Six Bells Lane, after about 100 yards, turn right into Martin's Lane. The old public house known as the Six Bells Inn is on your right, facing north. Built into the brickwork, the pub sign has a small millstone with 6 black arms. Walking on to Castle Hill, reached by following Martin's Lane, straight past the once joiner's 15th century farmhouse. Walking on all along the north side trackway. From there you can walk up the shortest distance to the top of the hill. Alfred on the top, this famous hilltop, taking pictures of surrounding upper and lower village views. The eastern trackway passes through the centre of Ash Plantation on Castle Hill Lane to the Black Pits, site of a Roman iron foundry from this style. South side trackway and steep terraces. On this side then, the style is on the way to the 99 steps and bridges over Sutton Brook. From there you can reach the cricket pitch, Butchers or Friars Lane, Institute and Church or Chapel. There's the style. Front and back views of Gillett's Barn. Current owner Ken Durham. This stands by the entrance of the real Gillett's Lane. This lane runs up to the poorlands or top allotments and on along the left hand side into Radnor, then Woodlakes, leading to the stone quarry at the eastern side of the big ground, awarded to Brailes Parish Council for road building when Brailes Hill was formerly Roden Hill Common. Fanthill Farmhouse. To return, turn right off Gillett's Lane at Radnor, then follow on down Fanthill Trackway, past the old Home Guards lookout post, then past the smithy and so back to the fountain.
And on to the Gate Inn. Panelling behind this bar includes a door access to private, maybe earlier, a spiral staircase. The dining room has a beamed open fireplace that retains alongside its baking oven door. The Gate is widely known for Grimsby fresh fish and chips. Outside view show the external semicircular stone and tiled surround of the old bar staircase. Photo outside shows front door of Charlie Cuthbert's father and family about 1924. Tusbrook Home Farmhouse includes land owned at Tusbrook at the bottom of the old lane off left at Caution Corner. There was two old cottages there. In one lived John and Alice Reason. Rear view at farmhouse shows bakery on right hand side. Restoration will be described by Severin Godson.
To renovate the house, but we're doing it in a green ecological way, because we've put in a ground pump which collects heat under the soil and pumps it into the house, and we're going to put a lot of insulation in, keep the character of the old house but in a modern way, and we might even go as far as a wind turbine.
And you're going to do the farm buildings?
Yes, and we want to restore the farm buildings as if they were still a farmyard, get the pigsties back up with the roof on, and the cow sheds there with all its arches. Yeah, Teddy. And we don't, but we're going to try and preserve a farm in Brailes with all its old buildings without it being developed.
Right-hand buildings included the foundry of John Gillett, agricultural machinery maker. The bakery with bread oven on left side and large copper oven right side of the fireplace, to be included in restorations. The large barn once used to house Gillett's plush weaving, with adjoining stables, saddlery and foundry. And out back, the old milking parlours and pigsties. Old photo about 1930 shows entrance to foundry farm buildings. Still photo shows Spicer's grocery stores, brewery and Brailes, which Brailes band used upstairs as practice room, and a Myrtle cottage. Arthur Spicer used a covered wagon to run a horse-drawn carrier business from these premises to Banbury on Thursday and Shipston on Stour. back gardens include fishy bird bath, statues standing on slabs covering the well that supplied Frank and Ernest Taylor's brewery for 12 years. The well became contaminated, closed the brewery in 1924. Was drained by Shipston Fire Brigade in the 1960s, in the 1936. Old photo taken before closure. Now we turn up Enbrook Lane, past Grove End Farmhouse to the start of the old trackway and High Lane Coppice, or the gully, running over the eastern side, still off Brayles Hill, southeast side of Brayles Hill, to Middle Hill Farm and on to Sutton and Cherringdon. Older photos and shots today of the Malt House alongside High Lane and Vic Wilkes's farmhouse, both on the right. From Thomas Turn, a view across the valley to Mine Hill Farmhouse. The rookery, original trees felled for timber, the younger trees replanted by Derek Mumford and Tom Woodward for Mr. Basil Taylor. The 99 steps, counted by the inquisitive, young and old, never the same number, tottering down as when counting, clambering back up, where breakage and slippage created this old Celtic footpath puzzle. Now, how many new steps now? How many new steps? When I was a schoolboy, I can remember me and my pals counted them on a number of occasions, and we got as many as 109 steps. Iron Bridge. At the top of Gillett's Lane, formerly Holly Walk or Leather Lane, you turn left to Old Iron Bridge, ex-steep orchard, then stile on footpath. Early photos show views over the Gate Inn, brewery and Spencer's farm, with allotments, etc. in background, and Castle Hill. Today, Mature trees and new housing mask a similar view. Widow's Row and thatched roofs of the blacksmith's shop and post office of Humphrey and Mary Webb. The footpath runs down alongside the old trackway by College Green that rises behind Steep Orchard onto Gillett's Hill. Forge and post office make a splendid stone thatched residence today. St Ronan's Lee. Today Mrs. B.J. Scandrett A.E. lives here. Her late husband, Group Captain Basil James Scandrett, CBE AFC, retired in 1971, having served 32 years with distinction.
The Crinkle Crankle Wall, possibly a unique construction. An ingenious improvement to the practical interior of any walled-in garden. High sections for trees and climbers, peaches, apricots, cherry, plums, etc., plus all soft fruits normally grown in greenhouses. The vulnerable planted snug in crinkles, protected by crankles from the cold wind, etc.
Brayles House. An early photo shows long frontage and trees on lawn and left wing still standing. Sutton Brook runs parallel to the frontage through the lawn to a sluice gate and weir that controlled its level. To left of the old left wing, an ornamental lake at its own small sluice with gate raised by rack and pinion. An old sepia still shot shows the waterfall running over through the weir. So attractive to old school kids who scaled the road bridge wall, crept along the banks to see it. driveway road still curves in over small bridge to reception entrance in right hand wing. Attractive outbuildings set with super large oak tree and walled garden at rear. The old coach house by the bridge and Sutton Brook, once a jail, became Brailes Lock-up in 1864. A garage between the wars, Harry Biddle sold petrol, ran a taxi service, Mrs. Biddle gave piano lessons. Springfield House in the sunshine with attractive gatehouse, lodge, tents on the lawn for First War prisoners, then a home guard base in Second World War. Last shot as Castle Hill with trees in background.
Brailes Golf Course was started about 15-16 years ago, or it first opened for playing members. Before that, it was just an idea that a man called Brian Hull and myself had to try and get some more golf in the area, because there was a shortage of golf clubs in those days. And this is a product now after 16 years. It's certainly improved and matured now. The trees that were planted then are good. When the course was actually built, we had a great help from local people. The bank manager at Shipston, a chap called John Pearce, had retired, and he came and looked after the finances of the golf club for us. And Brian Hull, who was a machinery contractor, agricultural contractor, he got the machinery to make the course. And me being a farmer, I also got tractors and that I could help. And that's how the course was made. But we had a most considerable help from a chap called Ray Baldwin, who was a golf club architect in Droitwich, and he actually finished the design of the course off and advised us on the planting and the layout of it. I say this Ray, his knowledge of golf was unsurpassed really, and we did owe him a great gratitude. And I remember asking him one day when the course was being completed, I said, Ray, I haven't actually paid you anything for your consultation and the expert way you laid the course out. And he said to me, well, my old television's on the blink. He said, perhaps you'll get us a television set, which we certainly did. Because you could be paying architects anything up to £10,000–20,000 to do this sort of thing. We've had good years. The last year wasn't too good on the course. Our greens got bad, but I think with another greenkeeper here now, we have overcome that problem, and it is now quite a good course.
So then he was Dr. Hitchens, then was your
great-grandfather.
Great-grandfather.
Great-great-grandfather.
Great-great-grandfather, yeah.
Would you like to come in on the video and say just a few words about Dr. Hitchens and him being your great-great-grandfather, or the family, or anything relating to the clock?
Yes, well, Alf's obviously done a lot of research on it, and I realised this clock was obviously in existence somewhere, and didn't really know where it was at all.
You record this, Barry, by the way.
And all of a sudden, I had a solicitor's letter from Brighton, and just saying Mrs. Berghope had died, and she wished, it was her wish that I had the clock and the trunk. Of which I got the old trunk somewhere, I think, up in the attic now. But of course, the clock interested me more than anything. But it hadn't got the dome was broken that should be on it.
Yeah.
And I went all the way over to Norfolk to get one day. And do you think I can't lay my hands on one quite the right size?
Count the 99 steps.
Yeah.
Then butchers.
Right, round the Brailes search.
weekend of 6 weeks of summer. It'll start
What
tomorrow
we
morning.
get into
You might have seen them there.
All right.
When you're pulling anything in, can you just give us a word on what you're doing? Making a
Okay,
delete, is it?
Yeah. Squash the steel out. I'm making a leaf, and you have to draw it out. That's the nib on the end of the leaf. And now I'm going to put the veins in it.
Oh, that'll be interesting.
Have to work it while it's red hot. And give it a wire brush. And then we can start bending it into a scroll.
Lovely.
Clench the leaf out so we don't damage it when I'm bending it round. And we check the leaf on the pattern, make sure it's going in the right place. There you go, that's one leaf. Tools on, scythes and shears and things like that. Presume they had a handle on here to turn it around. They probably had an apprentice turning the handle, and then this bit here, this machine here, this is used for rolling the iron tyres for cartwheels, and yeah, it's still used today, and it's still used for rolling iron tyres for cartwheels, and I've rolled quite a few sets of iron tyres for cartwheels. And then this machine here, this is a cropping machine, and we crop big bits of steel with it. Like so, and it'll cut up to 2" by 1/2" bar. So there you go. I don't know how long it's been here, I don't know how long it's been in use, but it's still in tip-top condition. And this is the older leg vise, and that had been used
used when they're doing outside work, and yeah, been used, still use the drill today. Got a big grinder that we still use, and we're hoping to restore the lathe at some point. But, yeah, more will be revealed in the future. Yeah. I've restored all this. Yeah. I've restored the tray, and then I've started building the. Yeah, it's so.
Contact the Edition Journal office and ask them if they've done any photographs of the private pictures of the artifacts that he found in the chapel on the front page of it.
What if it's on the front page of the Edition Journal? Do we need to have it on the video? Really? Do we need to have that on the video? If it's on the journal, you know, if it's in the Edition Journal, everybody's seen it.
Not the people who videos haven't seen it.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah.
Okay. Touching the tradition of a Georgian Catholic chapel with a fairly simple wooden altar, and as you see a painting of the crucifixion above it. Catholic chapels in the 18th century, of course, and the early 19th, were very simple, very austere buildings. We were a small community, and we were also still under threat of persecution, and so everything tended to be very quiet and understated. The statues in the chapel, for example, are much later additions. The first statue of Our Lady put up in public in England wasn't until 1841, when the statue of Our Lady in St John's Cathedral in Birmingham was installed by Pugin, the architect who gave it. So here you have a very simple wooden altar with its canopy, and a much later Victorian brass tabernacle in which the Blessed Sacrament is reserved. There would originally have been a simple wooden one here. And of course, with following the liturgical reforms of the Second Vatican Council, the altar was moved forward from the reredos at the back so that the priest could celebrate Mass facing the congregation. But it retains most of its features, including the 18th century walnut frame, which keeps the altar frontals in place. This is a much more modern one. We do have one or two very much older ones. The chapel was created in the top half of this barn in 1726, probably the first Catholic church created in England after the Reformation, and the panelling, and especially the altar rails, are contemporary and original, and they're remarkable that they've survived, and of course a very special feature of the chapel. There are very few altar rails of this period that have in fact survived and often disappeared.
Well, I mean, using all this phrase, it's all right, but I mean, it's one thing you don't have to do. Yeah, but this is the that they use. What we really want is a nice little chamber organ, which is for obscure to fit the chapel.
Yes, Jeremy's got it.
Turn it round so we see the back as well.
Yeah. Well, this is an 18th century chasuble, which was designed and made for use here in the chapel for the priest celebrating Mass. As you see, it's of gold with very fine, delicate embroidery, and is one of the many sets of antique vestments belonging to the chapel here, but this is one of the few that's still kept here. The rest are held in the museum at Oscott College in Birmingham, along with the other treasures of the Archdiocese. It's designed so for the priest, the back will be normally seen by the congregation. The priest faces east of the altar. So the front is of a different style and shape, though, and obviously not as elaborately decorated.
The other piece on the cabinet. The other piece on the cabinet, what is that actually?
That's the stole go. The stole is worn underneath the chasuble. It's the symbol of the priest's vestment worn as part of the set.
Lovely. That's it then. Good. Now,
the monstrance is one of the, again, treasures of the chapel. It's used for which the consecrated host, the body of Christ, is placed, so as it can be displayed for prayer and devotion and for giving benediction, the blessing of Christ. And this incorporates a silver candlestick, which is probably late 17th or early 18th century, which by tradition belonged to Father John Huddleston, who was a Benedictine priest who worked in London and who is reputed to have received King Charles II into the Catholic Church on his deathbed. Father Huddleston was the priest at Boscobel in Shropshire and at Moseley Old Hall, particularly, where Charles first met him on his flight after the Battle of Worcester, 1649. And the monstrance, again, is of silver with brilliance, and that is 18th century work.
Here we have an early V2 receiver, one of the first radios I think Dad got in his collection. You can see from the other ones they go through the ascending years until we get to a homemade 3-valve 1924 that I believe Dad made himself. And we work our way up really through the crystal sets. We have here a pie, which is really one of the first of the portables. It has a leather handle on it. If you look at the face, it has a picture of the rising sun, which obviously the Japanese used in their country, but it didn't go down too well when later on we were at war, and I believe the pie firm dropped this sort of logo that they had. You've got another portable in the background, quite a lot smaller and more useful, and we go along the top, and the top three again portable using a dry battery, until we get down to the Bakelite models, which were well known by Echo. I believe they went through what they call the Bakelite period, and not only radios were made of Bakelite, several other sort of household items used this, so they shaped them in various styles, as you can see there. They're quite attractive, I believe, to some people. And there is a green one that was put in, I believe, one of the radio exhibitions that Here we have some earlier not that early televisions, from the 50s, the 405 channel televisions that I believe the collectors now look for because they can put an input signal in. And we have one of the first televisions my father had in around about 1932. I believe the BBC used to close the radio stations down possibly 9 or 10 o'clock in the evening, and then put a signal out from somewhere in London to Droitwich, which I gather my father used to sit up for hours and hours with another colleague from the village, and as far as I can gather, they received these signals in 1932 for this television, which is a bird.
Kindly shows us the first television set in Brailes, which is one that he made in 1931. This Baird system was the first system in the world to transmit television pictures over the air. System in motion and a typical recording of the television signal. And his 2 radio sets with horn loudspeaker of about 1928.
We're now moving round to the later ones, 1940 period. We've got a BTH horn speaker that was attached to some of the radios. You've got again a small pie with a rising sun symbol on the front fret, and then you've got the wooden cabinet ones here, again with the echo of the bakelite that's moved on to this period. We've got another portable, a blue portable at the top. These are moving through 1945, 1946 now, and a lot of the radios, as you can see, are getting smaller and smaller with all the technical knowledge. The Echoes are still remaining quite a big radio. There's an Echo A23 there, 1946, which is quite large compared with the others on the table. We're now moving on to the Bush, which was a very popular radio that went from the late 40s right through to the 50s, not really altering shape much at all. They were Bakelite models. We're moving on now into the 50s, and most of the radios, as you can see, are getting smaller. Possibly people had 2 or 3 radios of this size around the house now rather than one large one, which could have been cumbersome at the time. And we're moving up to the 50 period. Still got some Echo Bakelite ones, which I presume were rather cheaper to manufacture than have to go to the bother of a wooden polished cabinet. We've got 2 in the rear there, which are about 1957, 1958. And we have a Vida portable, which was the start of the portable radios, and as you can see, radios got smaller and smaller with the introduction of transistors, which gave greater power and used less batteries really.
Joan Crook, a comprehensive sketch of the Brailes butcher's shop, paperwork and tools of trade. Started in 1887 by Mr. Jack Lyne and wife Mary. Their daughter, Annie, teacher at Catholic school, married Jack Crook. Their children, Bob, radio and TV previous, and Joan, they took over running the business, including butchery and pony and trap in 1948. Joan is now in Low Furlong in Shipston. Her favourite customer was David Attenborough when he visited his wife, the Oriel family in Brailes, for friendly discussion on any subject at length. After jointing, the meat was weighed on old large and small spring balances and sets of iron and brass weights, then modern, tested, licensed scales.
it's not too bad a day really, considering it was rain, you know, for a start.
Well, I saw a bit this afternoon, and it was fine then, but I don't know how they finished up. It was early on this afternoon.
Well, I can tell you how they finished up. 245 for 6. Freddie Truman took 5 wickets out of the 6.
Oh, that was pretty good.
So that wasn't too bad, was it?
Did you see any of it, Mrs. Mark?
No, I didn't see it. Well,
I've been glued to the television or the wireless all day long. I haven't missed over, not really.
Well, I've been too busy to do that.
They're leaving you to do all the work.
That's right.
And the ironing.
And the ironing. Well, at least this is the 3rd time I've started to do it. I've been interrupted each time.
Right.
Anyway.
You'll be setting somebody on to do it, all for you, right?
I'll finish it tonight.
So we'll have someone else to do it.
That's right.
What about the garden? Have you been out there today?
No, I haven't been out there today. Oh, yes, I have. I forgot all about that. Yes, while the cricketers were gone to dinner, I was planting out plants in the flower bed.
Some plums, yes. And single asters. Let's hope they'll grow.
Oh, they won't grow.
New potatoes, yeah?
Yes. Yesterday, yes, we had new potatoes and carrots yesterday for dinner, didn't we?
Yes. Well, we've had
Pete,
some.
not next Sunday, but soon.
Memories.
Why? He bought
Oh, yeah.
Cow Lane, main road through Brailes, from 1140 to 1690. Walking down to Plumtree Cottage and onto footpath with gate, back way to School Lane. Plumtree, present day owner Mr. Chris Wrighton. Plumtree was 3 cottages from 1304. External semicircular spiral staircase at rear. 1 tucked-in corner of extension.
External stone, I mean lots of internal stone stairs in the village, or remains of them, but external ones, there are nice. Say Joe and Cook up opposite the George. But whether hers are still stones, I don't know. There were actually 2 sets in here, but when we came, the other end, they were wooden, they were rotten. So we pulled them out and just made them into a pantry and a curve. We'll show that in the end. So, that's the oven, the original oven as far as we know to the house, and it's a non-flued oven. In other words, it's a sealed oven, and they used to put dry faggots in there from the hedging, tie them up, and obviously they were just big enough to go in through the door, and then heated the oven with the faggots, and hence baked the bread or whatever else they baked. And we've got on the farm in the orchard, we've got an old type of pear called a Cadillac, which I got identified, which is as hard as stone, but they were bred purposely to put in old ovens to take anything up to 18 hours to stew.
Pears?
Yeah, pears, and they put them in these things, so they need a low heat, like the bottom of an lager now, or Rayburn.
Yeah.
And they put them in there, and they're just hard. I was going to pick them up, they were all falling down, they're just like stone. We barely cut them, but I suppose as the year went on, they kept. As the year went on, they softened a bit.
Yeah, you can use them through the winter.
And they use them, but they were developed for at least 12-hour baking, stewing.
Those
bacon on.
Those stones.
Passing the old boys' school, we enter St George's churchyard by the rear. On the wall of the church is a plaque commemorating the Reverend John Austin. Below the plaque is his tabletop tomb. The plaque reads, "Pray for the soul of Reverend John Austin, many years pastor to the Catholics of Brailes and neighbourhood, died 27th of August 1809, aged 68.
And that, Barry, I think is a footstone from years and years ago when they used to ride to church on horses, and they'd come out and that's just down there, I think is where they placed the foot. A constant wear wore that groove in, what they call the poor man's watch.
A concert by the Brailes Brass Band featuring Gavin Clemens, cornet solo, and Jonathan Stevens, bells and drums.
Under the red carpet are the tombs of the Bishop family. This is the tomb of Francis and Elizabeth Bishop's daughter, who died in April 1724, aged 25.